Hello, Tyler. You ready for this one?
I am so excited about this one.
You know, we can talk all night, but you know it ain't getting us anywhere.
That's right.
So today we're going to do Meat Loaf.
Yeah, I want you,
I need you.
but there ain't no way I'm ever going to love you.
Yeah. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah.
Let me give you a little history on Meat Loaf, first of all. Born Marvin Lee Aday, not to be confused with Lee Marvin, the actor.
Yeah, very different people.
Yeah. So he was born in 1947. He had an alcoholic cop for a father and a gospel singer mother. And he was born in Dallas, Texas, before moving to Los Angeles in 1967. It's not really sure how he gained his nickname, but he did try to pack on some weight in an unsuccessful effort to fail the physical and dodge the Vietnam draft like a lot of people were doing. And a lot of people say maybe he chowed on too much meatloaf, and that's how he got his name. It sounds good enough to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good as anybody else's theory.
He started his band in Los Angeles in 1968 and called it Meat Loaf Soul. But they also performed as a band named Popcorn Blizzard, which I quite like the name of that band as well, to be honest with you.
That really fits Meat Loaf, doesn't it?
Yeah.
His personality?
It does. Yeah, he was working as a bouncer in L.A., and he formed his band, and he started out opening for some pretty famous bands, The Who, The Stooges, Ted Nugent, pretty big names. With his early bands, he went through a lot of replacements and breakups with his bandmates. I don't know if he was hard to get along with or what.
He's a pretty intense personality.
Pretty demanding.
I can imagine he's a little difficult to get along with.
Yeah, and let's preface all this by saying that I'm not a huge Meat Loaf fan. I do enjoy a few of his singles, but Tyler here,
Yeah.
we're kind of reversing the roles because Tyler loves Meat Loaf, and not just for dinner.
So, yeah, any of you guys out there that have said, hey, what about Tyler's music that he likes? Well, this is your episode.
Yes, it is. So he recorded his first album in 1971 with his high school friend Sean Murphy, who was a female vocalist, nicknamed Stoney, and the album was titled Stoney and Meat Loaf. Now, you sure this song isn't about Stoney?
I don't know for sure. I mean, that's the weird thing is this. I don't think so because Meat Loaf didn't write it.
That's true. That is true. So Meat Loaf has had an appearance in a lot of movies, you know, most famously starting off with the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but he's been in Wayne's World, Fight Club, and a movie we've talked about a few times with Patrick Swayze called Black Dog.
That's right.
Very good movie.
He's got an excellent role in Fight Club, too.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
And when you talked about him not writing it, of course, the person that wrote most of his music for him, Jim Steinman, he pretty much had a thing with him. And
Yeah, if you like Meat Loaf songs, it's probably Jim Steinman that you like.
yeah, because he's pretty much written everything. Pretty much the whole Bat Out of Hell album, the Bat Out of Hell 2 album.
Yeah. Yeah, what's the I'd Do Anything for Love?
Yes.
That's Jim Steinman. You know, like all the big heavy hitting Meat Loaf songs, chances are it's Jim Steinman, especially if there's piano in it, because Jim Steinman's a big piano guy.
Yeah, and of course, his big hit and his big claim to fame and what got him on the world map is Bat Out of Hell, the album in 1977. And the funny thing about that album, it is the 4th best selling album of all time.
Wow.
Over 40 million copies sold.
That's insane.
So that album alone, if he done nothing else, and obviously with Bat Out of Hell 2, when he come back in 93 with I'd Do Anything for Love, which cemented his legacy. I mean, Bat Out of Hell was enough to propel him forward.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that it took like 10 years from the time that he started his music career to hit that breakout hit, you know?
Well, not only that, another 15 before he did anything else because he suffered a lot of problems in the 80s from drugs and all kinds of things. And obviously him and Steinman had a lot of problems there for a while. So a lot of songs, famous songs in the 80s that Steinman wrote supposedly for him that he didn't end up singing because of what was going on. And you know what some of those songs are.
I do know a couple of them. Let's see. Bonnie Tyler's really big hit, Total Eclipse of the Heart. That's a Jim Steinman song. Then there's Air Supply's Making Love Out of Nothing at All. Those are 2 that I'm aware of. But if you listen to those songs, boy, they really fit Meat Loaf style, right?
Yeah, they do. And it would have been funny to see, not funny, but it would have been interesting to see if Meat Loaf would have released those songs.
For sure. I know that he did. I know he's covered Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Yeah, I've heard that cover actually.
Yeah.
So obviously after the popularity of Bat Out of Hell, you know, there was 3 big hit singles off that album. Obviously, the song we're doing today, two out of 3 Ain't Bad. Paradise by the Dashboard Light and You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth were the big hits off that. They were going to do a sequel to the album, but because of his emotional and physical problems and all the issues he had in the 80s, it just didn't happen for a little while. His voice was trashed. He'd broken his leg. He had to perform in a wheelchair.
Dude.
Yeah, a lot of things going on, and he struggled to even get into releasing his follow-up album called Dead Ringer. But Steinman had sued him, and there was all kinds of problems there, but he had to declare bankruptcy, check himself into rehab. He had some problems through the 80s. There's no doubt about it. And it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if he could have followed it up and been strong with Steinman at the time. And
oh, boy, because if there was ever a singer that was made for the 80s, it was Meat Loaf.
Yeah. And obviously, he had the big comeback with Bat Out of Hell 2 in 1993, and it sold almost 15 million copies worldwide in the 90s. So not a bad Bat Out of Hell run for Meat Loaf.
That's a comeback, yeah.
Meat Loaf also released another album with Steinman in 1995 titled Welcome to the Neighborhood. 1996, he followed up with a compilation album. Masked from all his live songs, it was called Live Around the World. He didn't release any other albums until 2003, and he followed up with Steinman for Bat Out of Hell 3. The Monster is Loose, but it wasn't quite as big a hit, obviously, but it was kind of hard to live up to what he had already done. And they did collaborate one more time for an album in 2016 called Braver Than We Are. And unfortunately, Meat Loaf died on January 20th of 2022, just 1 year after Steinman had passed.
Oh, sad.
Yeah, so
They're both gone.
So, do you want to get to the song review?
Yep, let's do it.
And now it's time for the song review.
Okay, so today we're doing Meat Loaf, and 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Which that's not proper grammar. I just thought I'd let you know.
That's all right. What can you expect from a guy that was, beaten by his drunk father and his mother just made him read the Bible?
Good point.
Or something like that.
So this was the 5th track. It was released on July 31st of 1977 on the Bat Out of Hell album. The single was released the following year in March.
So the album came out first, and then they released the single.
8 months later.
Like 8 months later, wow.
Yeah, in fact, I was only about 4 months old when the album came out, and you weren't old at all.
Yeah, you might have been. I wasn't even a glint in my daddy's eye. My brother wasn't even a glint in my daddy's eye at that time. Yeah, you might have been born to this song. I don't know what they were playing in the delivery room, but hey.
So the B-side to this song was a song called For Crying Out Loud. Now, the one problem I have with this is it was produced by Todd Rundgren, because I can't stand that guy, and I don't know why, but he's had a lot. I think he sang backup on this and had a lot to do with this. Written by Jim Steinman, of course, vocals by Meat Loaf, and Todd Rundgren used his band called Utopia, had Todd Rundgren on guitar, Kasem Sultan on bass, Willie Wilcox on drums, and Roger Powell on synthesizer. This song hit as high as number 11 in the U.S. on the charts, and it reached number 32 in the U.K., which is kind of funny because it's probably one of his most, if not, it's probably his most played song nowadays, at least on classic rock radio, because
seems like it, yeah.
I think his 1993 hit, I'd Do Anything for Love, you don't hear that on classic rock radio because it doesn't quite fit.
Well, just because it's so long.
Well, not only is it long, but I don't think there's many 90s songs hitting classic rock radio. It's kind of in that in-between time, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But you do hear this one from time to time.
Yeah, I think I hear this one more than any of his songs, honestly. So his first single off the same album, Bat Out of Hell, was You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth. It didn't do very well on the charts initially, but I think after this song came out and was really popular, it really helped that song propel it into popularity. So this song is really Meat Loaf's second best song as far as popularity goes, and that would be after the 1993 hit I'd Do Anything for Love. 2 out of 3. It's a breakup song. Follow the lyrics. They're pretty straightforward, really. I mean, you can even hear them, but if you have to look them up, look them up. But it shows lust and passion isn't enough for a relationship. It needs to have love, too, which I don't know if I agree with that, but that's what he's saying in it. So the singer's getting kicked to the curb because he won't tell his girl that he loves her. He's been hurt, right? He's been hurt before, and we're not sure who hurt him, but he explains to her that he's attracted to her. He's not going to love anybody else, but that one of his past loves hurt him deeply when she said the same thing to him when she broke up with him.
Ouch.
And so
if you're not able to tell the person that you're with that you love them, then it's going to strain the relationship.
But it sounds to me like through this song, he's not going to love anyone, or at least in the state he's in.
He's feeling damaged, right?
Yeah, he feels like, you know what, he can go in for the sex, he can go in for the passion, but he's not going to love anyone anymore. It's nothing against her. That's just when it happened to him, it broke him.
He's just a guy, so he's always ready to jump in bed, right?
Exactly. It was written as suggested by an actress called Mimi Kennedy that Steinman should write a straightforward song like Elvis Presley song called I Want You, I Need You, I Love You, which you hear that in this song. That's kind of the pre-chorus. And Steinman decided to put a twist on it, play off the idea that so many times you find someone who you love or like a lot of things about, they're missing a certain something that just doesn't put you there.
Sometimes our feelings just don't match up at the same time.
Yeah, so we listened to this song a couple times. We listened to the full-length song, which is almost 5.5 minutes long, but as far as the single was concerned, they did cut it down to about 4 minutes, which is still a pretty long single, funny enough.
Well, Meat Loaf doesn't do short songs.
No, he doesn't. This is the full-length version of this, which is about 5.5 minutes, is probably still his shortest song.
These are what I think we call them episodes at this point instead of songs.
Yeah, Meat Loaf's definitely interesting. I'm fairly familiar with the Bat Out of Hell album, and that's about it. But one thing I was going to say about this song is what really helped it gain popularity is in March of 78, he performed this live on Saturday Night Live, and I think that really helped. I mean, especially at the time Saturday Night Live was the thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that was the heyday.
Yeah, that really pushed it out. A lot of people have speculated as far as the subject of this song that's written about the same girl who broke his heart, but he later came back and he is unable to love her because of how bad she had hurt him in the past. It certainly fits Jim Steinman's writing style, and I think you know that better than anyone.
For sure.
And the tone of the album, if you really listen to the whole album, how it really fits in. It does. This song's been covered by a number of bands, probably most famously the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. Steinman originally kind of wrote this as a country song, so that actually makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
But it's been covered by Bonnie Tyler, which apparently Steinman has something going with her.
Yeah, she must be the female equivalent of Meat Loaf in his mind.
Yeah. Covered by Julian Austin and Don McCoy, among others. So obviously, as far as my history with his song, I know it fairly well. I've listened to it quite a few times. I've always enjoyed the song. We've kind of flipped the page on this for you, from me to you, because you're a huge Meat Loaf fan.
Yeah.
In fact, I've asked you on a number of occasions, who do you think your favorite artist is?
And I think I've said almost jokingly in the past, Meat Loaf. I think a lot of my favorite songs come from Meat Loaf.
As much as I kind of find that funny in some ways because of the music, Meat Loaf doesn't fit into a category, really. To me, he doesn't. It's not really classic rock. It's not pop. It's its own thing.
Yeah, it is.
It's over-the-top theatrical music. It really is.
Yeah, it is. And he's got some songs out there that are kind of silly along the lines that I like. But he's also got some that are just really, like this song as well is a great example of it. It's a song that really takes a topic or a theme and really exemplifies it, puts it into a tangible, understandable display.
I think when you listen to most of his lyrics, they're not something you really need to decipher. Most of his lyrics are they give you that imagery really well, you know, crying icicles instead of tears.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it paints a great picture. And it's not just this song. You listen to the whole Bat Out of Hell album, and he's very vivid with the lyrics. Obviously Steinman, but the way he sings, and that's another thing I was going to say. His voice is really interesting, but I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But so after sitting down with the purpose of reviewing 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad by Meat Loaf, Tyler, what are your thoughts on this song?
I always have so much fun listening to songs that we've listened to. Some of the songs I've listened to over and over again before. This song I'm very familiar with, but this is the first time that I'm sitting there listening actively to it to critique it and review it for an audience. So that puts a different spin on it. And so I'm looking at this from kind of a different angle, and I really enjoyed it. Knowing a little bit about the history and Jim Steinman specifically, because, one of the things I've learned so much is that a lot of the things that I love about Meat Loaf, it's actually Jim Steinman, the guy behind the scenes that I'm really in love with. And he's in love with the piano. So it's so fitting whenever I hear the piano in a Meat Loaf song, and you hear piano all over the place, because that's Jim Steinman. It's he's weaving his signature all throughout the song.
Does Jim Steinman play the piano in the recorded versions, or do you know?
I don't know for sure. In some of them, he does. In some of them, he for sure does. He is a classically trained pianist, and he's very well accomplished as a writer and a composer. But it does fit that, like, the Bat Out of Hell album was kind of written as a rock opera, kind of like a Peter Pan style rock opera about that, a continuation of that story. And that's something that I learned in history with Meat Loaf. And he captures so much of that teenage drama and angst of growing up and the awkwardness. And, even this song particularly, where you're going through a breakup, and then on the B side, you're trying to preserve the relationship by working your way through a fight. It's like, for crying out loud, I Love You is the B-side song of this. I really love this single, both sides of it. And I love it because of Jim Steinman. Perfectly written. Love the piano. Love the vocals. The guitar is amazing. I listened to the guitar for the first time, and it sounds almost sitar-ish. It's got a little bit of a twang to it that you get with the sitar. Then the drums are excellent. The bass is excellent. It's real solid bass line in this. And they join in after the piano open. The whole thing's just painted very vividly with the imagery. And I have to say, Jim Steinman's a genius writer. I'm really impressed with him. I think that Meat Loaf, he certainly brings a lot of personality and passion in the vocals and the performance, but I don't think Meat Loaf stands on his own nearly as much if he doesn't have Jim Steinman fueling the fire. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But as far as the song goes, I mean, he's got this girl that she's in love with him, and he's been happy to have a fling with her, kind of a friends with benefit situation. But it sounds like she is kind of laying down the law for him. Like, you're not going to sleep over anymore unless you tell me you love me. He's like, well, we have a good thing going. I want you. I need you, but I'm never going to love you. I don't. Something's broken in me. I can't love you anymore. But hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, right? It's such a strange thing to say, and such a mean way of breaking up with somebody, right? As though that's like your consolation prize. You're almost good enough, but you're just not exactly what I want. So once again, that's a very adolescent attitude to take, as though that's going to be somewhat satisfactory. But I love this theory that people have, that this is the same girl who broke his heart, that she came back to him later on, but he's like, you are the one that damaged me. And there's something that's so poetic about him jabbing her same words back into her heart. Like, yeah, she wants him to love her and give her a second chance, but he's like, I'm never gonna love you because I'm too damaged, and look who did the damage. You have nowhere to look but the mirror, lady. I don't know if that's what Mr. Steinman's saying, but hey, I love that. Either way, I think it's a great song, and I had a great time listening to it. And critically speaking, I still think it's a beautiful song. And when you look at it through that adolescent mindset, that it captures that snapshot of teenage maturing and developing relationships and trying to learn how to deal with each other, with other people. So that's my thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on 2 out of 3 ain't bad, Justin?
Meat Loaf's always been kind of tough for me.
The Meat Loaf's kind of tough?
Well, yeah. I mean, I probably cooked it too long.
Put some more ketchup in it next time.
Okay, I use salsa.
That too.
For me, I always kind of look down on artists that don't write a lot of their stuff and don't play a lot of their own instruments. But Meat Loaf's a little bit different because he adds such that theatrical side to things, and his vocal, it's very strong, it's very strange, but it's very Meat Loaf. There's no confusing who it is. It wouldn't matter what he was singing. There's no confusing. So I'm kind of tied on that. I'm not the biggest Meat Loaf fan, but I've always enjoyed this song. It's got a pretty piano intro. I like the piano throughout it. And piano for me is kind of hit or miss, depending on how it's used in songs. The guitar is kind of there, but it's kind of different. The guitar is probably mixed the furthest to the back. I do agree with you, though. The bass and the drums are very thick. The bass line in it is very, very good. I think that shows to what we're usually talking about a lot of the 60s songs and stuff. The mixing can be hit or miss, and especially drums are very tinny in the 60s and not mixed very well. This is mixed very well all the way around. I think it's balanced well. The vocal, the piano, the drums, and the bass. The guitar's a little low, and if you've listened to this podcast, I like the guitar. So it could have done with that, but that's just not really Meat Loaf's style anyways. So a very good song. I've always enjoyed it. It's not one that when it comes on the radio, I skip it or anything. This is not even probably. This is my favorite Meat Loaf song. I'm not very experienced outside of Bat Out of Hell. So do you want to rate the song?
I do.
Song rating.
All right, if this is your first time listening to an episode, our rating system, I'm going to break down real quick. It's a 0 to 10 scale, 10 being awesome, and 5 being smack dab in the middle. I'm going to give this one a 7. This is not my favorite Meat Loaf song, but it's not a bad one. It really captures this event, a really tragic event, very well, and has some really good imagery, and it's beautifully done. It's just not, it's not really my favorite song, and there is something kind of weird about a song that's about a breakup using a very cruel line as the title of the song of, hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, babe, right? 7, performance, excellent. I think everybody did a good job. What about you, Justin? Where do you put this one?
We're pretty close the same on this. In fact, not pretty close. We are the same. Yeah, I rate this in a 7 as well. It doesn't hit my markers for the kind of music I like, but I like a lot of odd music too, and I have a lot of asterisks and exceptions for music, and this is one of them. It's a song I've always enjoyed. Like I said earlier, it's my favorite Meat Loaf song by far. I'm just not a huge fan of him, but I'm the first one to admit I don't know much of it. It seems kind of odd to me, but what I have heard, I enjoy. So there for me to explore more, I guess, in the future. But not a bad song at all. It's still played on classic rock radio quite often to this day, deservedly so. I think what you said earlier was Steinman, or let's say you said Meat Loaf wouldn't be Meat Loaf without Steinman. I completely agree. Look at his 80s albums where Steinman wasn't involved. It just didn't work. Steinman's a damn good writer. There's no doubt about that in multiple genres. Yeah, I think they work really well together, and it's kind of unfortunate they didn't get to work all through the 80s because what he could have done following up Bat Out of Hell might have been pretty crazy.
Well, it seems like every time they got together, they just made something amazing, but they were a flash in the pan, right? Like they blew up, had a really awesome go, and then it just died off right away. And then 10 years later, they'd get back together, flash in the pan, died off. And then about 10 years after that, they'd come back together. That's how it was.
So that's Meat Loaf. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Send us an email and let us know what you think. ClassicVinylPodcast@gmail.com. And once again, like always, we really do appreciate you listening to us. There's a lot of music podcasts out there that you could be listening to. So if we're one of them, we really appreciate it. But until next time, we'll see you later.
See ya. Thank you so much for listening to Classic Vinyl Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Classic Vinyl Podcast for updates, and also share us with your music-loving friends.